Welcome back to Fade to Chat, the golden age of cinema, and we did get a golden one in today. It is great, I think a great film. We're going to find out because Cindy hasn't weighed in on it yet, and she hadn't seen this to her remembrance or knowledge.
No,
But yeah, with me, Cindy Rotz, co-host of this show, as we pick apart movies that were classics anywhere from the 30s through the early 60s. And this time we did The Treasure of the Sierra Madre from 1948. It was directed by John Huston. It also has Humphrey Bogart in the lead character of Fred C. Dobbs, Walter Huston, his father is Howard, Tim Holt as Bob Curtin, and Bruce Bennett as James Cody. So some interesting actors in this. Let's just go into this cold. It's a movie about three guys who decide they're going to get together and be prospectors. This, I think, is in the 30s, or somewhere in the
25.
25. Yeah, it was identified by the ad with the from the newspaper. So it's set in that time, and it's set in Tampico, Mexico. Or it starts in Tampico, Mexico, and then goes up to Durango, Mexico, and the Sierra Madre Mountains, supposedly. It's a great story, and it has a lot of moral characteristics and moral questions in it. Cindy, what's your take on the film?
You're right. I wasn't sure if I had seen it, and I had not. It's definitely a guy's film, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I did. I've watched it now 3 times just because there's a lot going on, and I wanted to make sure I was clear on everything, but I did enjoy it
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons. Like you said, there's a lot going on with morals and values. So it's not just all about looking for gold. There's a lot going on that you really I found very interesting with the character, particularly of Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, I this was a completely different role for Bogart. In fact, he was quoted as saying, "I'm going to play a real bad person."
Yeah,
I
right.
think is the kindest way of saying it. When people asked, he said, "Wait for my next role. I'm going to play a really bad person." And he is
Mm-hmm.
morally corrupt in this film, and corrupted by gold fever, I think is the best way to
Yes.
describe it. I'm glad you enjoyed the film. I don't know what would make it a girl's film. You say it's definitely a guy's film.
Yeah, I mean, there's no romance, there's no women, so to speak.
Yeah,
It's just, the 3 guys searching for the gold.
dealing with the elements, dealing with the banditos, dealing with the police. Yeah, but I hadn't watched it in probably 6 years, maybe. I own it, so I was able to go to that copy of it and watch it. And I liked it. I watched it this time thinking, what is Cindy going to think of this? And as I went through it, went scene to scene, and first of all, it gave me memories of the film,
Mm-hmm.
but it also, I really enjoyed the storytelling in this because there wasn't a part in the film where I was bored. Maybe there was for you, but for me, it was the script was very intentional in moving the narrative along, and moving to kind of the ultimate end of what happens to these 3 prospectors. So yeah, interesting film. I'm interested in hearing more of your reaction to it, but I want to give our listeners a little bit. This was from a book by B. Traven, a novel in 1935, again, based in the 20s. And John Huston spent more than a decade trying to get this film done. His directorial debut was The Maltese Falcon in 1941. This came out in 48. So for 12 years, he was trying to get the thing set up to go and finally was able to get studio approval. Originally, the studio wanted George Raft. And I can't see George Raft in anything but George Raft movies where he's flipping a quarter or a dollar or whatever. And Edwin G. Robinson, we've seen him in different things where he does have some really interesting acting chops and can stretch in characters. You should see him in Cincinnati Kid sometime. We'll take a look at that because that's a different characterization for him too. And then John Garfield, who I don't think was right for this film at all. But that's what the studio wanted. World War II intervened. And by the time Huston returned from making his Army documentaries, which is what he did then, Bogart had become available and Warner Brothers' biggest star. And so Bogart really wanted the role of Fred C. Dobbs. Interesting alternative for some of the roles, Ronald Reagan. For either James Cody, which was the prospector that kind of figures out that these guys are prospecting and wants in on it, and meets a tragic end. But Jack Warner wanted Reagan to appear in another studio picture instead. Ronald Reagan also was considered for Bob Curtin. And frankly, with his demeanor, if you looked at his acting around those times, he could have pulled off either role, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you? I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
I could see him playing Curtin, or Cody,
I see him
because
playing
they
Cody
were not.
more than Curtin, really. Yeah.
Yeah, just because they were more low key. They were not as intense. Well, Curtin was in certain scenes, but Cody had a small role. So yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of Tim Holt as Bob Curtin? I had
I
not
liked
seen him in things. Yeah, I liked him too. And I don't know what happened with his acting career because with all the films I've seen, I probably haven't seen him in anything else. I was really surprised about Tim Holt and really pleased with his acting performance and the kind of range that he did with it. And he had sort of a movie star look to him where I could have seen his career in a lot of different other places and in a lot of different other ways. But to my recollection, I haven't seen him in anything else. And I'd have to check his IMDb to find out what he might have done. So besides this.
I remember when we talked about this, I said, well, I know Tim Holt, and you said you weren't sure. But you're right. He was a very attractive man in that respect. So you would think he would have continued his career, maybe even in a leading man role.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see him in leading man light comedy or light drama.
Yeah.
Not anything too over the top, but what'd you think of Walter Huston? Because I said
loved him.
I wanted to pick this movie because it was different than the last one, which we did. And then there were none, where Walter Huston plays a very kind of stylized character in there as the doctor. And in this was completely different characterization.
Yes. No, he was great. He kind of stole the show, I think.
Yeah.
He really did. It was interesting, and I'm sure you know this. They said he had to play the part without his false teeth, which he didn't want to do.
but I kind of thought he chose to do it, or basically his son said, "Dad, you need to do this without your
Yeah,
false teeth. You're supposed to be an
yeah, he
old."
was reluctant. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other part about his character was he studied Spanish. Well, he listened to a lot of recordings of Spanish in order to be able to speak or respond in Spanish fluently back to
Right.
a lot of the main local characters in the film, to the point where the crew thought he spoke Spanish. So he worked very hard in order to develop that kind of character that he had in terms of it.
Yeah.
One of the things
had-
that yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I read they had hired a Mexican person to actually record all of his lines, and then
Yeah.
he memorized them. And yeah, they thought he was fluent in Spanish because he spoke, like a native. That's how
Yeah.
hard he worked on that.
Yeah, I was impressed with him in this role, and I think this might have been the first role that I saw him in. So this was my characterization of who he was. There were lots of his jig, I think, was something where he did that little dance. I think I alluded to it last time. You get to see him dance like an old prospector.
Yeah.
And he had picked that up from Eugene O'Neill while performing in the O'Neill's Desire Under the Elms in 1925. So, just interesting characters. He won the Best Supporting Actor. Walter Huston won that, and said he'd like to make a picture with his dad every year, or with his son every year, and then he died the next year. So he wasn't able to do that.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting in the beginning of the movie, Bogart had said, we're going to have to carry this old man on our backs. He had no idea what he was in for. I mean, Houston turned out to be the one that was stronger than the other two guys, and certainly more knowledgeable. And I liked his character. I liked his character a lot.
He seemed to be a moral center for everybody. And he wasn't going to get into arguments that it had to be this way or that way. He just kind of knew from his experience what could happen either way and prepared for that. So here's one thing that struck me when I was watching the film. And I thought about you with this. There are stretches in this movie when the locals are interacting, or one of the characters are interacting with the locals, and it's all in Spanish without subtitles.
Spanish. Yep.
How did that work for you?
Well, I went into my closed caption to see if I could. First, I wanted to see, will it translate it for me? And I thought, well, maybe it will. I got the gist of it. I'm sure I missed some of it, but it wasn't so much that you couldn't really get the gist of what was happening.
Yeah, particularly when they were arguing
I did
about
struggle with that.
when they were arguing about the boroughs at the end, where it there seems to be a long drawn out dialogue between the thieves, the banditos, and the stolen boroughs, and you kind of know what's going on there, but you really like to know what are the details they're trying to accuse them of in the process.
Well, I think I asked Claude a couple of times what the deal was, and Claude said something about they thought they put extra weight on the burros so that they would sell for more.
So So they would
get more.
The pelts they would get more from the
add
pelts.
to their weight, yeah.
Add to
and
their
of course, what's his name? Walter Huston. He would translate a lot of times what they were saying because the
Yeah,
other two gentlemen didn't understand it either. So that
yeah,
helped. But yeah, there were quite a few times I thought, I don't know what they're talking about, but it didn't seem to matter.
yeah. Yeah, I think you could pick up the context from it. I thought about
Hmm.
that when I saw those scenes because
And there were
I,
certain words you thought, oh, I know what that means. Yeah.
yeah, I was okay with that. I'm okay with that level of confusion or not understanding what's going on in the moment as a result of
Hmm.
it, and kind of trust the narrative as it's going to happen.
Right.
Hey, Robert Blake, little Robert Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little
Yeah.
boy is going to grow up and murder his girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was very good.
Yeah, he plays a little local who is a boy and is trying to sell lottery tickets.
Hmm.
And apparently, they have a lottery going on. They don't know where they're going to get the money for prospecting, and then they're working on this plan for a couple of weeks. And the boy finally finds Bogart again and says, "Hey, you won. You have the winning tickets." So they got a bunch of pesos, which then could be used for buying the equipment that they needed. Then Bogart held that against
Yeah.
Curtin later on in the
Curtain.
movie, and they got into a disagreement around it. So yeah, it was Tim Holt's father was in the film, plays in the flop house as
Yeah.
bum
Yeah.
in the opening scenes. And
Yeah.
Jay Silverheels, you remember Jay Silverheels?
No, help
Tonto
me.
from The Long Ranger.
Oh gosh. Okay, I don't
Um,
remember that.
Appears uncredited as a Indio guide. So one of the guides that took them where they were going. So yeah, interesting film. Lots of little details in it. I'm sure
Yeah.
there was lots of drinking on the set with John
Yeah.
Huston, and then also the this production went way over schedule.
Hmm.
And Jack Warner was upset with the amount of money that was being spent on it
Hmm.
in terms of it. It did get incredible critical and public approval and excitement about it. And so the film did really well. Film holds a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on 53 critical reviews. American Film Institute ranked it at number 38 in its list of 100 greatest American movies and included it on its list of 100 most heart pounding American movies. What was the heart pounding part?
Um, I don't know.
Did you
Yeah.
notice that all of the violence was off camera? So,
What do you mean?
um, for example, when the banditos run into Bogart's character at the water hole, and they finally figure out they're
Oh,
just gonna.
yes. Yes.
The one guy's fascination with his shoes, he really wanted his shoes. He didn't care about
They
anything
wanted to
else.
kill him for his shoes.
And
Yeah.
so they knock him down, and he's off
You're
camera.
right.
And then you
You're
see the
right.
machetes come out, and he swings the
Hmm.
machetes a couple of times. You hear a sound, but you don't see
You're
any of the
right.
violence. And that was throughout the movie. I noticed that a lot of
You're right, Marty.
the bullet deaths and things were off screen.
Yeah, when
Even,
he shot Curtin.
when he shot
Hmm.
Curtin, you didn't see Curtin get
No.
hit. And part of that
And you
might have been
didn't
the
see
code.
Cody.
Yeah. You didn't see Cody
Which
die.
mm-mm.
Yeah. He was,
No, you're
he
right.
was supposedly shot in a place where you would expect lots of blood, but there was
Hmm.
no blood on his body. And I
Yeah.
just wonder if that was part of the code in terms of the film code that protected, that wouldn't allow them to show that kind of violence at the time, or at least it was a directorial choice not to show it.
Could be. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, your favorite lines?
Well, I think you told me about this ahead of time. I'm not sure. When they were with the bandits and all, and Gold Hat, who was the
Right.
leader of them, he said, "We are the Federals," or however he said that. He said,
Federales.
"We're the mounted Federales, thank you. We're the mounted police." And Dobbs said, "Well, if you're the police, where are your badges?" And he said, "Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges."
Yeah.
That's the one, of course, everybody remembers.
But no, everybody remembers we don't need no stinking badges.
Stinking badges.
Is a combination of... and then there's a comedy that talks about Wisconsin, and they have somebody says Badgers, like the Wisconsin Badgers, the football team. We don't need no stinking Badgers.
Stinking badgers. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I just remember that line from some comedy. I can't remember which one.
Okay. I wrote down a couple others, but
Yeah.
I thought, again, Howard, he was very wise.
Yeah.
You know, he foreshadowed everything that was going to happen in the movie with the gold and the greed and what was going to happen. At one point, they were talking about what they were going to do with all their money at the end. And Bogart was saying, you know, he was going to buy all this clothing and he was going to eat all this food. And then he alluded to the fact that he was then going to get a woman because there was, you know, what else would you do? And Howard said, "Well, if I were you boys, I wouldn't talk or even think about women because they're just not good for your health."
Yeah. And
ain't good for your health.
And up in the Sierra Madres, you don't want to be thinking about women because the closest one is miles and miles away. So there's no sense in doing that. So, yeah.
I kept waiting to see those tigers they talked about. I thought, where in the world? What are they talking about tigers? They didn't mean tigers.
They probably meant
mountain lions.
Lions, yeah.
Mountain
would
lions.
be the guess.
Yeah.
So the guy who wrote the novel, what did I like? What? Mm-hmm. In terms of quotes? Oh, it's the I sit and wait for the badges thing the whole time. And there's, you know, there are some like moral statements throughout that generally come from Howard through the movie that I enjoy. So, interesting thing about, John Huston was chasing B. Traven, the novelist who wrote the story, for years, and he was rather reclusive, and he approved the screenplay and then sent a letter and a representative to appear on set as an advisor for $150 a week. And there's all sorts of suspicion that because people never had really seen him, that he was the on-set advisor who showed up.
Right.
They felt that this advisor was Traven himself, although he always denied that he was Traven. So, and then did you catch John Huston in the cameo, obviously, of the American that gets in on multiple times?
Yes.
He has such a distinct voice. And I don't know if you're familiar with I think it's his son's work. He has a son. And I'm trying to look it up. Danny Huston. Danny Huston is a character actor who's appeared in a lot of things. many, many films and played significant character actor roles in them. So in The Constant Gardener, 21 Grams, The Aviator, he has played in The Crow, The Dead Don't Hurt. And we're just talking 2022 now, but he's been around for a while. Doc Martin, Succession, Yellowstone, Angel Has Fallen, Frankenstein in 2015. And if you look him up, you will see John Huston. And I've heard Danny Huston interviewed. And he is, I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to get the direct relationship here. His parents were Zoe Salas and John Huston. And Zoe Salas, he was born in Italy when I guess John Huston was on location. And they stayed in Italy for a good period of time. He's the half-brother of Angelica Huston. And it's interesting because I've heard him interview, and I heard one interviewer say, go ahead, do your dad's voice. And he will slip into his dad's voice really easily. But if you look up and see his picture, you'll go, oh, yeah, I've seen this guy in a lot of things. Okay. And Danny Huston.
I'll have to look for him.
There was another Huston, absolutely it's just no blood relationship from what I can find. Actually, no blood relationship to the rest of the Hustons, Angelica and John and Walter and Danny. So.
Yeah, I forgot about Angelica Huston.
Yeah. There was a lot of pranking on the set. John Huston put a mousetrap under the rock where Bogart's character suspects there's a Gila monster under there and reaches for his hidden goal while there's supposedly a Gila monster there, and then the trap went off and scared the heck out of Bogart. So...
yeah, that would do it.
Just a weird, interesting sideline. The idea that production was shut down by local authorities in Tampico after a newspaper publisher made accusations that the filmmakers were unflattering towards Mexico. Actually, the book that it's based on was really unflattering. And the screenplay lightened that up a little bit and took some lines out that were in the book because they were so disparaging to the indigenous population. But the filmmakers, there were accusations about it. It eventually emerged that the crew had failed to pay the newspaper editor. They didn't do the payoff.
Right.
The custom courtesy fee. And then the director, Diego Rivera, and artist Miguel Converbias intervened with the Mexican president, had the accusations dropped, and then the editor of the newspaper was shot dead by a jealous husband when he was caught in flagrato with the jealous husband's wife. So
yeah, I read that.
All sorts of wild things. Yeah. Jack Warner said, "Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It's my gold they're spending when he went over budget." So.
Mm-hmm. So, do you know the Bugs Bunny reference?
What Bugs Bunny reference?
There's an old Bugs Bunny cartoon called The 8-Ball Bunny. I went and watched it this morning. I had to watch it. And Bugs Bunny has this little penguin. He finds this little penguin. He has this little black top hat on. Yeah. And this penguin had been dancing in the ice follies. But Bugs Bunny is trying to return him to where he thinks he lives. He's trying to get him back to the South Pole. And along the way, Humphrey Bogart appears and says, "Hey, can you help a fellow American?" He says, "Can you help a fellow American who's down on his luck?" He does this twice with Bugs Bunny. And then at the end of the movie, when he finally, or the cartoon, when Bugs Bunny returns his little penguin to South America, he takes off his little top hat and says he really belongs, he's a Hoboken penguin who's dancing in the ice follies in Hoboken, New York. He's like, "Oh no, you really belong to New York." And again, he appears. Oh shoot, he's coming to mow my grass. That's just great. Anyway, Humphrey Bogart appears, and then Bugs Bunny says to him, "Can you help a fellow American who's down on his luck?" So he appears in that cartoon 3 times, and it's very clearly an animated Humphrey Bogart.
What I'm curious when the cartoon was
It's
done.
1950. 1950.
2 years after this film's release. So yeah.
Called 8-Ball Bunny. Mm-hmm. You have to go watch it.
It's weird how much cartoons influence. I'll tell this story and then we can move on or call it a day. But I don't know if you've seen Mel Brooks's Spaceballs.
No.
Which is okay. It's a whole takeoff on the space genre. And at the end of the film, they're sitting in a cafeteria and they're having a meal in a diner. And at the end of one of the long tables are crew members who look exactly like the crew members on Alien. So there's a Sigourney Weaver looking one. There's a Yapicado looking person, and then John Hurd, who was in Aliens. John Hurd, of course, is the character in Aliens who the creature emerges from as he's having dinner with the rest of the crew. And he starts to get sick. He starts to act sick. He falls back on the table and he looks up at the camera and he goes, "Oh no, not again." And then this thing comes out of his chest and it's animated and it's got a little top hat on it. And it goes down the counter singing, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal."
Yeah.
That comes directly out of a Warner Brothers cartoon, where the guy finds a frog that can sing opera, and he decides he's going to put everything into this frog, and whenever the frog gets in public, it just kind of croaks, or what frogs do, instead of doing this beautiful music he does. It's not only that scene with the "Hello, my baby, hello, my..." It is the cook that's looking at him holding the dishes with the hat on, and then the cigar drops out of his mouth. That's directly from the cartoon. Okay, so one movie I'm going to try and get you to see. It might be a little too late, but What's Up, Doc? Where
I've seen that.
Well, okay. Where they're upstairs on the piano and we can't see what's going on after they start to embrace each other. But a painter comes up and steps off the elevator and looks down, staring, and then the cigar drops out of his mouth. Same exact shot from a cartoon that Peter Bogdanovich did. It's really wild when you can see these throwbacks, like you said in this. You saw it in the cartoon, but also you can see it in movies and cartoons, and because it's funny without knowing the throwback. Right. But if you know the throwback, you get the inside story. So how would you tell somebody about seeing this movie if they hadn't seen it?
I think because it is so interesting to watch the interaction between the three characters, that
Hmm.
is what's going to hold your attention
Yeah.
because of the dynamics between the three of them and obviously how Humphrey Bogart's character changes for the worst throughout the
Hmm.
film. That's what's going to keep your attention. That's what kept me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's Treasure of the Sierra Madre from 1948. Humphrey Bogart, directed by John Huston, has Walter Houston in it, and also got to put a marker in. Damn it. And also Tim Holt as Bob Curtin and some other support actors. You can look for the different actors in there, including a very, very young Robert Blake playing a little boy in town. And I just like it because it's a good story. It has it in this particular movie in the screenplay. I can't speak for the book, but the dialogue is so good in this film that there's not a point. There are transition scenes where you see the wind blowing and stuff like that, but there's not a point that you're going, I'm going to give up on this film because you want to find out what happens next to the complete end. And the final scene with Walter and with Curtin, where they've kind of decided this is where life takes us and this is where it's going to go, is pretty touching in terms of their
I
relationship.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the film we're doing next week?
We're going to do the Pink Panther.
Yeah, you needed a palate cleanser, I think, after the last two, and I said, yeah, let's do a
Yeah.
palate cleanser. So we're
Yeah,
going to do
this
the Pink
definitely is.
Panther with David Niven, Peter Sellers, Robert Wagner, and Claudia Cardinal
Oh,
as I
yeah.
think the femme
She's
fatale.
beautiful.
Directed by Blake Edwards. It started a relationship that Blake Edwards has had for years with the character Clouseau, which had gone through multiple different actors, including, of course, Peter Sellers and then Steve Martin. Still, this is the first film that introduces Clouseau that I can remember and that we checked because I was saying, was a shot in the dark before this or after this? And it was after this. So this is, I think, first in the series. Yeah, it
And
will be
there's,
a fun film to look at. I have not seen it in a while, and if I saw it, I'd saw bits and pieces of it here and there without watching the full film. So yeah,
and you'll see the Pink Panther cartoon character in there as well.
yeah. Now I got to ask him a question. Is that a Sal Bass? Because that looks so much like Sal Bass.
I don't know that it is, but that's a good question.
Yeah, we have to find out who did that animation.
Yeah.
And we'll find that out for the next
Hmm.
time when we record the show. So, Pink Panther, 1963. That'll be what's on our next episode. Cindy, thanks for doing this, and
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Marty.
taking the trip to the Sierra Madre
You're welcome.
and enjoying that story and that experience. Hey, you can find out more about us at the podtalk.net that has the links for all of the shows that we do, including this one and other shows. So take a look at the podtalk.net. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@fade2chat. And you can email us like Brian often does, letting us know what he thought of the films at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Cindy, this has been a pleasure. I will see you in maybe 8-9 days
Yeah.
at
Yeah. Next
MaxDoc.
week. Yeah.
And
Can't wait.
we'll have the Pink Panther episode out before then. and we'll see about maybe taking a week off with MacStock. But it'll be fun. We'll have a good time. Thanks for doing this, and for all of our listeners, you're part of the group now, and all I can say is keep the projectors rolling.